What's going on, everyone? Welcome into West Lafayette for Week 10 of Stadium Drive here with Storied Rivals Sports Media live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Will Ford here with you for a battle for, I guess, second place in the IVC, but a lot at stake as far as playoff implications go and seeding here between the visiting Garaway Pirates, 7-2 on the season, taking on the Ridgewood Generals, 8-1. A matchup that over the last 10 years, it's been a tug-of-war, even split 5-5. Garaway won 3 in a row between 2021 and 2023. Ridgewood won last year 42-14. And both teams just as good as it gets in the IVC. And, of course, Indian Valley, a state champion last year in Division IV, undefeated this year, well on their way to making another deep playoff run. They locked up the IVC championship. This game tonight will decide who finishes second in the league, but more important than that is the playoff seeding for both teams. And for Ridgewood, they have locked up a playoff spot. They're currently sitting number 4 in their region right now. And if you take a look at Garaway, though, what I think is really interesting, and we've kind of yet to come to a consensus on where Ridgewood standing is, or excuse me, where Garaway standing is as far as their playoff hunt. So if you look at Division 6 Region 21, which is where Garaway sits, according to Drew Pastor's Ohio Fantastic 50, they're ranked 3rd in the region, which top 4 seeds, they get a bye for the first round of the playoffs, so that would be huge. And obviously Garaway would need a win tonight to secure that. But if you take a look over at Joe Idle, joeidle.com, they have Garaway down at number 11, which a loss here to Ridgewood would bump them out of the playoffs. So I'm not sure which one is entirely accurate. We've been kind of debating that all week. If someone can let us know, if anyone out there knows the true playoff picture for Garaway, Division 6, Region 21, please drop it down in the comments. Someone send us a message, something. But a lot at stake. Because if Garaway were to lose this game, this rivalry to Ridgewood, not only would they potentially fall out of a top 4 seed in the playoffs, they would be second in their league, but they could even, if Joe Idle's sourcing is correct, they could even fall out of the playoff picture entirely, which it almost doesn't seem right given how good of a football team Garaway is, sitting at 7-2, but they have Garaway listed here at 6-2, and they are not counting the game that was never completed against Expression Prep, I believe, in Week 2, early season. That game they only played a quarter of that game and 3 minutes into the second quarter before it was canceled. Garaway was up big, I think up 40 points in that one. And Joe Idle did not count that game towards the OHSAA standings. Drew Pastor's Fantastic 50, they are counting that game towards the standings, and they're calling them 7-2. So it's very interesting. We'll have to see how that shakes out throughout the night. But let's dive into this matchup, though. Like I said, both teams split the last 10 meetings, 5-5. And let's take a look here at the breakdown of the last 10 matchups. So, I mentioned that Garaway won 3 in a row from 2021 to 2023. You can see that there, 19-14, 29-0, 35-13. Ridgewood won last year 42-14, but really it's just been back and forth, tug-of-war, starting with Ridgewood in 2015 winning by a score of 7-0, back and forth, and the longest streak in this 10 years is Garaway with that 3-year streak in 2021 to 2023. So it's been a battle between these two squads, and Coach John Slusser from Ridgewood and Jason Wallach from Garaway, it's been a battle between these two for the better part of 20-25 years. I think Coach Wallach has been with Garaway for 23 years and Slusser here with Ridgewood for 21-22 years. So it's been a battle. Of course, when Coach Wallach took over the program with Garaway, Ridgewood was running the show for a number of years, and now these teams have been back and forth the last 10 years. It's been really quite a joy to see and fun to watch and fun to cover these teams, especially since I've been at Storied Rivals. But let's start by talking to head coach John Slusser of the Ridgewood Generals. We talked for about 15 minutes. You're only going to see about 7 or 8 minutes here tonight on our live stream, and we'll make sure we get the full video out for you guys to see the full interview with Coach Slusser. But we talked about how dominant his run game is. If you remember, back in Week 5, their lead running back got injured midway through the season, and so now it's been a committee approach for the Generals. They've got guys like Bryce Tolliver and Talon Carns, Logan Israel running the football. Their quarterback Jace McQueen is a talented runner as well. It's an offense that's predicated on running the football, and they don't throw it a whole lot. They don't need to. That running game has just been so solid. And against Claymont last week, they won 28-7, and 9 of the 12 minutes in that fourth quarter were salted away on one drive by Ridgewood. So and they capped that off with a touchdown. They were leading 21-7 at the time. That basically took any opportunity from Claymont away, and Claymont, a good football team, to make any kind of comeback in that game and cut into the deficit that they faced. You saw off 9 minutes of a 12-minute quarter. It's really impressive. Their running game has been dominant, but Coach Slusser talks about this rivalry with Coach Wallach, that chess match over the years, and how fun that's been. They've got a great relationship. They're friends outside of football. They'll, not like each other for 48 minutes tonight, but after this, they'll be the best of friends again. And Coach Slusser jokes about his relationship with Coach Wallach and talks about this rivalry and how good of a football program Garaway is and the challenge that they face tonight. So here is head coach John Slusser, Ridgewood Generals, live here on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us for Stadium Drive, week number 10, and here is Coach Slusser. Garaway for week number 10, they've played some really good football. Like, their offense is a bit on the younger side. Their defense is where they have a lot of their experience returning from last year's team. But their quarterback, Grady Miller, is only a sophomore. And I was at that Indian Valley game. And, in that first half, he made a lot of great throws. And they were able to move the ball pretty effectively in the first half before, Grady Kinsey in that running game were able to kind of separate and take that game. But he's got great touch on his passes, and Micah Yoder's a good target for him. Jackson Garber, he's got some talented guys around him, and he's also got a good rushing attack with Matthew Frey in the backfield, who does a lot rushing and receiving. But when you look at Garaway's offense and how you match up, what do you think of that sophomore quarterback back there for the Pirates?
The games I've seen, he's been very impressive. Somebody was asking me about him the other day, and you could take this as a compliment or a backhanded compliment, but I mean it as such. Like, since we've started playing Garaway, it's what they have every year. They have a quarterback that can throws it pretty well. They always have 1, 2, sometimes 3 or 4 receivers that are really good. They always have a skill guy at running back that's pretty good. It's just Garaway. They just replace, they don't, what's the word? They just reload. They don't lose. They just reload. Right. That staff does a great job. When you play Garaway at the end, that's what it's going to be. You're going to have to handle the quarterback. They're going to have skill guys. I think the one thing different about them this year is, I know Jason, he talked to me at the beginning of the year, and he thought this was one of the best defensive lines he's ever had and the biggest offensive line. So those are two things that they don't always have to go with them, although it seems like they've had a lot of good defensive lines too since I've been there. I have a hard time ever rating our guys just because there's so many good ones, but I know he's pretty high on that. So it's just Garaway. They're just good. They're well coached. Their kids believe in the system. We got a great culture going now. Great coaching staff. So, when we talk about them next year, it'll be the same thing. They have a really good quarterback. Right. That's never going to change as long as that group of coaches is there.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Garaway's defense, and it seems like it doesn't matter who they have there, whether it's young guys, experienced guys, it's always good. How difficult is it to prepare for the scheme that, Coach Wallach has and moving guys around? Like Micah Yoder on defense, like, he seemingly just flies all over the field, and he's got tons of guys that do that. How difficult is it to prepare for the defense every year? Because it's the same, and they just reload talent. How difficult is that?
I think that's been the biggest change since I've started playing Garaway from when I first started to today's game. Jason and I have both been there a long time, but I think defensively they've just gotten so much better over the years. Their system that they use is very simple, but so good. I see people copy it all the time, all over. We were playing somebody last year, and I called Jay. I said, they're doing everything you do. It's almost um, everybody wants to be like that system because it's
Right.
simple but great. Um, I think they take great pride in it now. Um, and for us, it's very hard to prepare for them because they're so big, and when they go, they slant really, really hard. They don't sit there. And when they're so big as they are this year, it makes it really hard to contain him. The Keller kid's he's a really good player. We're not sure how we're going to handle him or how we're going to block him.
Mm-hmm.
They got guys like that. And like we just said, they just reload. He can tell you it's
Yeah.
old guys, new guys, tall guys, skinny guys. It's always the same. They're just really good at what they do.
Whoever wins this game, are you buying Coach Wallach dinner, or is he buying you dinner afterwards?
I don't know. He sent me a text the other day, but we really haven't talked a whole lot this season. Usually we do, um, maybe once or twice during the season. So I always look forward to that. We talk a lot on game night. Jay's obviously been a good friend to me. I know a lot of people on his staff, a lot of my staff and their staff are friends. So um, it's a really cool rivalry because I think both teams want to win, and I think there's a lot of pride, and we both want to beat the other one. But I think there's
Right.
also a lot. I think there's also a lot of respect between the two teams. I've been a part of this. This is gonna be my 21st game as the head coach with these guys. I mean, you just don't see the personal fouls. You don't see the trash talking. Now, don't get me wrong. There's guys, there's a few that do that.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just telling you, it's not like the other ones where there's fights that break out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
both both sides, I think, do a great job of being respectable. I think there's just you can tell that they're very classy. I like my kids to be classy. We're not. I think it's the coolest rivalry around just because that part you come and it's well played, and believe me, there's such great hitting going on and such competitiveness, but I don't think it ever crosses the line, and I think it's the same way with coaches. Listen, there's been a few plays over the years where I've had kids do something. I don't think Jay was crazy about it, and he's done some
Yeah.
things I haven't always been crazy about, but it's never led any of us to get into it or be too out of control, and that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. The last thing I'll touch on here, and we didn't get to talk about this preseason. I don't know how I didn't ask you this question, but this is, your athletic department, spent, $4 million on facilities, and you've got turf now. You had grass. Like whenever I think Ridgewood football, I think of that grass field and just how iconic that is. And now you've got turf. I mean, what's that been like for you this year, having the updates to the facilities, but also playing on turf? And I guess what do the kids feel about, playing on turf this year?
I think our kids like it. For practice, it's been awesome. Um, I think you've
Yeah.
been here building, right? Where our building is in the end zone
Yes,
with
I
the
have.
building. Um, so now we just walk right out the door onto the practice field, which is really, really cool. Uh, I don't know, I can't see the background, but right in the background is the field. So, I mean, it's right out the door to the field. That makes
Hmm.
it so nice for practice. And we have lines on the field all the time, which when you get out on the practice field, you didn't have. Um, and I
Right.
can't, I can't imagine what the field would have been like this year because I don't think it's rained here in like 10 years till the past few days. I mean, it was so dry for the
Yeah.
past. So honestly, for the past 2 months, I think it's only rained like once or twice for very long here. So that field's got to be hard as a rock. That was nice. Now, that being said, I really miss the grass on Friday nights. I
Yeah.
think I think football should be played on grass. I thought our grass was really cool. I've always said this: they play the playoffs, and after whatever, it's got to be on grass after they leave the home field. I've always thought, or on turf. I've always thought those games should have to be on grass because I think the weather should play a part in it. Everybody's like, "Well, if it rains, the field's bad." And I'm like, that's football to me. That's football when
Yeah.
it's mud, got to figure it out and all that. Um, Listen, I'm old school. I'm an old person. When you get old like me, you know this. You hate change, and things are never as good today as they were back in the day when I did it. And I've fallen right into that trap. I hate the music that the kids play today. I think it's like Elvis Presley back in the time. I don't like turf. It's just I'm getting old and I'm stuck in my ways. But let me tell you, for Ridgewood High School, it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful facility.
That's one thing that I forgot to mention is that Ridgewood has brand new facilities, $4 million spent by the Ridgewood Athletic Department to create new facilities here and have turf installed. I feel like that's the one thing that's been synonymous with Ridgewood football for so long, especially since all these schools have gotten turf. 99% of them is that Ridgewood plays on grass, and I feel like that's always been part of their identity. And now a turf field this year, it's beautiful. First time that I've been on this field since they have installed turf. It's absolutely beautiful. And, for Ridgewood and, Coach Lusser, you heard him talk about this rivalry with Garaway. But I want to talk about the play of, some of their great players, specifically in that run game. And we'll take a look here at Bryce Tolliver, who, last week against Claymont scored both of his touchdowns in the first half, allowed them to jump out to a 21-0 first half lead. 12 carries, 95 yards, almost 8 yards a carry in those two scores. And, just look at him right there in that picture, just using his offensive lineman, pushing him ahead to fight for extra yardage and get the block where he needs it to be. Just a physical runner, and they've got so many running backs that can do a myriad of different things, and it makes this run game so difficult to stop. It's way different than, other teams in the IVC, what they've had to deal with the Indian Valley offense with Grady Kinsey. It's a one-man show, and their quarterback, Riker Williams obviously does a great job running the football as well, but Grady Kinsey, he breaks off these big runs, and it's a big play offense if you're Indian Valley, but for Ridgewood, they just cut time off the clock, play after play, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they just move the ball slowly but surely. And Bryce Tolliver has been a monster running the football. He's also a great player on the defensive side of the ball as well. And you take a look at some other guys that have been impact players in the run game for this offense, on defense as well. Talon Carns has been a leader on this squad for a couple of years. He had 85 yards rushing last week, almost 7 yards a carry. And Jace McQueen, 8-1 record as a starter. And Coach Slusser, when I talked to him, he said, how do we evaluate our first-year starting quarterback? It's by wins and losses, and he's won 8 times compared to 1 loss. That's pretty darn good. He threw a touchdown pass last week, and that was a 35-yard strike. So he can throw the ball. Of course, like any quarterback needs to, they need to be able to throw the ball, but he is also active in the run game as well. And Ridgewood, that run game has just been so dominant. But now let's shift our focus to the Garaway side of things. And I also want to, I was trying to do some more reading during the interview with Coach Slusser on what the playoff picture will look like for Garaway. And so they are actually not counting that expression prep game on Drew Passer's Fantastic 50. Like I had said minutes ago, I misspoke there, so I apologize, but they have Garaway sitting here at 6-2 and project them to lose to Ridgewood, so they would fall to 6-3. And if that does happen to be the case, they would fall to the 12 seed in Division 6, Region 21, and they would get that last playoff spot. Again, the field has been shrunk down from 16 teams to 12 teams. The top 4 seeds have a bye. The next 4 will host a playoff game, and the bottom 4 go on the road in Week 11, and they project Garaway to be at number 12. So I believe now both Joe Idle and Drew Passer's Fantastic 50 align in that way. And so, again, huge for Garaway tonight for them to get a win. And if they do so, they will absolutely guarantee themselves a playoff spot, secure it. But, again, it's a tight race because you have 3 teams, I believe, at seeds 13 and 14. And so if those games go the other direction, could Garaway find themselves falling out of the playoff picture? It's going to be very interesting to watch tonight. But let's talk to head coach Jason Wallach of the Pirates, because I think their story has been remarkably interesting this year. They, graduated all this talent on the offensive side of the ball from last year's squad, like a Brady Geibel at quarterback, and Dylan Sunland, their running back, who is small but super physical and has great speed as well. When you lose your top two skill players on offense, you expect things to kind of take a dip a little bit, and it really hasn't. They're starting a sophomore at quarterback in Grady Miller, and he has led this Pirates football team, if you're counting the expression prep game, to a 7-2 record. If you're not counting it, 6-2 record. Nonetheless, he has been fantastic. Great touch on his passes, and as a sophomore, really makes great decisions as a thrower. I believe 19 touchdowns, 1 interception to this point in the season. For a sophomore to not really be putting the ball in harm's way, and you are throwing almost 20 touchdown passes in a season, so you're looking at 2 touchdown passes a game. That's remarkably impressive. And, of course, the defense got a lot of experience returning. Micah Yoder plays on both sides, offense and defense. Maybe the best receiver on the offensive side, and certainly a fantastic corner who comes up with key interceptions when the defense needs it. And Garaway, yeah, they've dropped a couple games this year, but to some really tough teams like Indian Valley and Girard, and a young team on the offensive side, experience on the defensive side, and they just keep on winning. So let's hear head coach Jason Wallach talk about his sophomore quarterback, Grady Miller, Micah Yoder as well, and this rivalry against the Ridgewood Generals and John Slusser. Here's Jason Wallach here on Stadium Drive, week number 10 on Facebook, X, and YouTube. With head coach Jason Wallach with the Garaway Pirates going into week number 10, the final week of the regular season, and a big-time rivalry in the IVC against the Ridgewood Generals this week. And, Coach, I appreciate you hopping on this year, man, and talking some football for 10 minutes here. And I want to start with the play of your sophomore quarterback, Grady Miller. It's not every day that you see a sophomore step in and lead a football team to a 7-2 record going into the final week of the year. He's also got a great running game behind him with Matthew Frey, but just talk about the play of your sophomore quarterback seemingly stepping in and really delivering the football really well.
Yeah, we're really excited about Grady. We were coming into the season. We had a great year last year at the freshman level. Really good junior high seasons when he was in junior high, but you never know how that's going to transition into high school. But he's just such a competitor. He knows the game. He studies the game. And we knew we were going to have some sophomores, mistakes being a first year varsity starter, but he has done a great job of limiting those mistakes. I think he's got 19 touchdowns and 1 interception on the year, and that's pretty impressive for a sophomore quarterback. But and right along those same lines, he's one that's not afraid to take chances. So it's not like he's just dumping the ball down low every time and hitting his check downs. But he's made mistakes, but he's grown, he's matured, and he's really kind of come out of his shell. He's a pretty quiet kid, but he started to come out of his shell and become a true leader for us.
Now, one player that it makes plays on both sides of the football is Micah Yoder. I mean, it seems like he has 2 or 3 touchdowns every single week on the receiving end, and then he's making plays on defense at corner, intercepting a pass or 2 here and there. What can you say about the job that he's done just this season, being so good on both sides of the ball?
Yeah, Mike is a tremendous athlete, very, very good speed. He was one of our few returning starters on the defensive side of the ball this year. Pretty much our only starter back that played all 13 games for us last year in the secondary. He's got great ball skills, runs tremendous routes. He's probably one of the best route runners that I've coached here, just from a route running perspective, and has really grown into a leader in the offseason. Kind of took the younger guys under his wing, and that's one of the things that we, really pushed and encouraged him, to take more of a leadership role. And he took that and really ran with it. And all winter long, in the weight room, getting guys together and going to the field and throwing, doing those things that you would expect from a senior captain. And he's done a great job offensively and defensively. He's our number one corner. He's got, like I said, he's got tremendous speed, really good ball skills, great hips. And again, he's one that has really become a leader, become coachable, and he's been a pleasure to have. Just all around great kid. Again, you can't say enough about Grady and Micah and their families. Not only are they good kids, but they come from great families, great supporters, community members who are very involved in the community, and just special all around kids.
Now you've got Ridgewood here in week number 10, and it's always a battle going up against Coach Slusser. And I know over the last 10 years, you guys split the last 10 matchups 5-5, and Ridgewood won last year. But what's that chess match like with Coach Slusser every year?
Yeah, it's always been a pleasure. We joke back and forth a lot and get on each other a lot, but that's part of it. We've coached against each other for 27 years, and I've been the head coach for 25, and I think he's 23 or something, right behind me. As the dean of the IVC, I guess, so to speak. But
Sure.
we've had some great battles over the years, and if you go back and look. There's not too many of these games that have been separated by more than 10 points. I think they got us once or twice, but we've gotten them once or twice. But other than that, even back when we couldn't beat the Generals, we were in overtime games, we were in field goal games, one possession games. So every year it's a battle. Our kids know their kids. We've butt up districts, on the south side of Baltic, and so it's a great rivalry. It was funny because John and I always talked about, hey, we need to move this game to week 10, and then we finally move it. Now I'm not sure that I'm real happy with it being week 10, but it's a special game being week 10 in a rivalry game. But, and there's always something on the line, more than likely,
Mhm.
whether it's an IVC championship or just like this year, whoever wins this game will end up second in the league. And, it's fun. It has been a chess match. The years they've got real good run stopping defenses, and you try to throw the ball or vice versa. And I know they're doing the same thing. And it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to coach against them. I'm just glad we've won a couple games in the last 10 years. So my
Sure.
first 10 years we started out 0-10, so that was a little bit of a struggle. But we're trying to catch back up to them now.
Yeah. Now, your defense, it's always been great since you've been the coach at Garaway, and Ridgewood's rushing attack. I feel like it's been the calling card of their offense, especially over since Coach Slusser's there. And I know last week against Claymont, they in the fourth quarter, one drive ate up 9 minutes of the clock. It's just unheard of in terms of running the football and just being effective. And they've been kind of doing it by committee ever since their lead guy went down midway through the year. They've got like Bryce Tolliver and Talon Carns, Logan Israel, and their quarterback Jace McQueen runs it a lot too. How do you match up against a running game that's as effective as it's different than like going up against Indian Valley where it's just one guy really in Grady Kinsey, whereas Ridgewood they do it by committee and you've got a lot of guys that you got to account for.
Yeah, it's difficult. Obviously, I'm not real excited about facing that Friday night because of they've got the, like you said, the Carnes kid that can really run on the edge, and you got Tolliver and Israel who are more power downhill guys, and Jace is a very athletic quarterback, and luckily we have faced all these types of kids this year. Now I'm not going to say we were successful against all those types of kids this year,
Right.
whether it's a power runner or a Gerard quarterback who's up for Mr. Football, or Grady
Hmm.
Kinsey who's up for Mr. Football. I mean, there's and the thing you didn't mention was they don't beat themselves.
Right.
When you go on a 9 minute drive like that, you can't have penalties, and they haven't. They don't shoot themselves in the foot. They're very disciplined, so it makes it even that much tougher. But they know us, we know them. It's just a matter of getting out there now and executing. But we'll do everything we can to hopefully slow down their running game and force them to be in situations that they don't want to be in. And not that Jace doesn't throw real well, but that's not who they are this year.
Right.
They like you said, spread it out, find different ways to run the ball, try to out formation you, which causes some problems and some challenges. So we try to keep it simple so our kids aren't thinking, but at the same time, some of those simple concepts will get you in trouble. So you got to throw in a couple extra wrinkles there as well. But we're looking forward to the challenge, and it will be a challenge for sure.
I asked Coach Slusser this yesterday. The loser of this game, are you buying the other coach dinner?
Yeah, he still owes me a couple steak dinners. I think he never
Yeah.
holds up. He never holds up his end of the bargain. So
Oh, okay.
uh, no, no. You know what? We'll hate each other tomorrow night for 48 minutes, and then we'll be friends again when the game's over.
That's fair. We're looking forward to being at the game on Friday night, and I appreciate you hopping on for 10 minutes, Coach, and talking some ball, man. And best of luck against the Generals and as you get ready for a playoff push.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it, Will.
Huge, huge game between these two teams, the Ridgewood Generals and the Garaway Pirates. Big thanks to Coach Wallach joining us here on Stadium Drive. And, I just laid out the playoff picture for you for Garaway. If they were to lose this game to Ridgewood, Fantastic 50 is projecting them to fall to the 12th seed in Division 6 Region 21. And a win for Ridgewood would keep them in the top 4 in their region and give them a bye for the first round. So very interesting, a lot at stake. Ridgewood is guaranteed a playoff spot, but we'll see if they get that first round bye or if they're going to be hosting a game next week. And for Garaway, you can lose potentially and still be in, but obviously they'd much rather win this game, and they've got some great players that can go out and do it. We've talked about a few of them already, and you've heard Coach Wallach talk about them. But Matthew Frey is a guy that we didn't mention, and he has been a monster all season for Garaway. Only touched the ball 4 times last week, 79 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. But he opened the game against Sandy Valley last week with an 88-yard kick return touchdown. He is a guy that when he's got the ball in his hands, he makes the most of it. Electric player, and quite honestly, when you have a young quarterback, a sophomore in there, who's been playing great, but when you have a running game like Matthew Frey's been able to provide and a great offensive line up front, it just makes a world of difference. It makes things so much easier for your young quarterback. And Grady Miller has been playing excellent football as well, and we'll take a look at some numbers from Grady and Micah Yoder last week. So Micah on your left, he had 2 receiving touchdowns last week, 69 yards on one and 34 yards on the other. He also had 3 receiving touchdowns last week, or I should say the week before that. So 5 touchdowns over the last couple of weeks. And he's obviously a big play corner defensively as well. He's got an eye for the football always. And Grady Miller, the sophomore quarterback, had 2 passing touchdowns, both of them to Yoder. And he also rushed for a touchdown as well. And Coach Wallach talked about it, how good he has been playing. 19 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season, does not put the ball in harm's way, makes things happen with his arm and with his legs. Garaway's got another, great receiver in Jackson Garber, and the offense really, really good amidst graduating a lot of talent from last year's team. And the defense, doesn't matter who's in there, old, young, inexperienced, experienced, big, tall, little, skinny, fast, it doesn't matter. The defense is always awesome, and it has been this season. And it's going to be a fantastic matchup tonight, this rivalry between Garaway and Ridgewood. And lots at stake in terms of playoff seeding for both teams in this one. So definitely a game that you're going to want to keep your eye on here tonight. And the winner of this game will lock up second place in the IVC, which is saying a lot considering how good Indian Valley has been the last 2 years. So, and led by a Mr. Football finalist in Ohio, Grady Kinsey. But before we hop out of here and get ready for this game, we've still got about 40 minutes or so until kickoff. Let's take you through our schedule in East and Northeast Ohio first, then we'll move to Central and Western Ohio. So on the left side of your screen, we've got Union Local, just been on a tear the last 5 or 6 weeks. They take on Barnesville. That's going to be a really good one. Tri-Valley has at least a share of the MVL Big School Division Championship. They look to lock it up tonight against John Glenn. Maysville went to war last week with Meadowbrook, lost in a close one. They host Crooksville, I should say. West Muskingum and Meadowbrook will do battle. That's going to be a good one, and that'll kind of flesh out the top 2 or 3 teams in the small school division in the MVL. Over to the right side, Philo taking on Morgan, and a note on Philo. So David Kinder from WHIZ posted this earlier today, compiled a list of MVL coaches to win at least 100 games at one school and their win total. And Dirk Lincecum for Philo could join the list of coaches with 100 wins here tonight. And on that list, you've got Paul Culver Jr., Craig Spring, Jim Rockwell, Justin Buttermore, John Kelly, Sam Hatfield, and Bill Nutt. And Dirk could be the 8th coach to reach 100 wins in the MVL, which would be a heck of an achievement. And they take on Morgan tonight. New Lex locked up the MVL small school division, repeating as champions this year. Look to go 10-0 against Perry County rival Sheridan. Zanesville and Licking Heights, Talmadge, Roosevelt, Worcester at Louisville. And then to round out our schedule for week number 10, we'll go to Central and Western Ohio. We've got Centerville at Wayne on the left side of your screen. Dublin Jerome, Thomas Worthington. Dublin Scioto versus Westerville North. Grandview Heights battled some injuries the last couple weeks, man. It's really unfortunate how their season has transpired as we've gone down to the wire here. They take on Mifflin. Granville at Mount Vernon. Hamilton Township against Logan Elm. And then we move to the right side of your screen. Upper Arlington, Hilliard-Davidson. Hilliard-Davidson needs a win in that one to keep their playoff hopes alive. Jonathan Alder, Bell Fountain. Westerville Central on the road at New Albany. Olentangy versus Olentangy Berlin in the Olentangy rivalry. Another Olentangy rivalry, Olentangy Liberty, winners of 6 in a row after starting 0-3. They take on Olentangy Orange, and that will decide the winner of the OCC Central. And those two teams shared the title last year along with Upper Arlington. But the winner of that game will win it outright tonight. And Marysville, the last game on our schedule against Hilliard Darby. So there's our schedule, week number 10 for Storied Rivals football coverage. Let's get ready for some football, man, here in the IVC. The Ridgewood Generals hosting the Garaway Pirates. And a lot at stake tonight, not only second place in the IVC, but playoff implications as well, and we'll see how it all unfolds. But thanks so much for joining us. I want to give a shout-out to our friends at maxeffortmuscle.com. Amazing protein, some of the best tasting protein that you'll ever have. Great stuff, great supplements, great products, great merch as well, and those guys are great. We really appreciate Max Effort Muscle and them partnering with us each and every year. So go check them out, maxeffortmuscle.com. And let's get ready for some football, man. It's cooling off, it's cold, and I can almost smell playoff football. We're right there. We're a week away. We've got one more week till we get there. I'm going to take off, get ready for this game, but make sure you follow us on all the socials, Facebook, X, and YouTube, especially Instagram as well. Not necessarily YouTube because we won't be posting any highlights on YouTube tonight, but Facebook, X, Instagram for score updates, highlights throughout the night on the games you're looking to follow, and I'll be posting updates for Garaway, Ridgewood here tonight. But I'm going to take off. I'll see you guys in week number 11 for the first round of the playoffs for Stadium Drive. Take care, everyone, and happy football.